A really great time in the last 6 months. That's Birlasoft in the mid-cap IT space. I think 6 months ago, the stock was at 350 or 360 rupees. Today, it's at 820, which means it's an almost 120% gain that we've seen in the last 6 months for Birlasoft. Good set of numbers. The margins and revenue saw an improvement, but deal wins were lower. So let's find out more from the management. Angan Guha, the MD and CEO of Birlasoft, joins us now to talk about that. Mr. Guha, good morning and thanks for joining in. I wanted to talk a little bit about the deal wins because they were lower this time around. How is the pipeline? Is it taking longer to convert the pipeline? And what could the TCV, the average, look like in terms of deal wins over the next couple of quarters?
Yeah, Sonia, first of all, good morning and Happy New Year. And thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you.
Look, I understand the deal wins were a little soft, and that is predominantly because, the decision making is taking a little bit of time. But our pipeline is improving. Our pipeline is better than it's ever been. We are winning deals. And if you look at our 9 months, over the 9 months, we've actually booked roughly about $633 million worth of TCV deals, which is about 10% higher than the last year. So I'm not so worried. I feel the deal momentum will pick up going forward, but the pipeline is definitely improving, Sonia.
All right. Hi, Mr. Guha. Good morning. And Nigel on this side. I recall when you took over, the street was wondering what's going to happen from here on. But clearly, the street has a lot of confidence because the stock is up more than twice. From there, I think you took over at around 300 rupees odd. That said, when we had our first interaction, you said by the end of this year, margins will move to around that 16%. You've already done that, by Q3 itself, despite the wage increases. My question to you is, what is a sustainable margin from here on? Because offshore already accounts for more than 50%, and your capacity, your utilization is already in excess of 85%. So what's the margin band you move at from here on?
So good morning, Nigel. So Nigel, look, we've always stated that, we will continue to invest in the business. And we've done that. We've demonstrated that by a lot of investments in our people. We now have a new CEO for the rest of the world. We are investing in our domain. So we would like to keep our margins in a narrow band. Now, obviously, we don't give a guidance, so I can't really tell you exactly where the margins will land up in 4Q or next year. But I can only say that we will continue to invest in our business. We are here to build the business over the next decade. And we will invest in the areas that we have called out, keeping the margins in a narrow band.
Because margins are not sustainable is what you're trying to tell us. Will they move higher or lower from here?
Again, we don't give a guidance, so we will take one quarter at a time and we'll execute for the quarter and we'll continue to invest in our business. Whether margins are sustainable or not, Nigel, really depends upon how you execute for the quarter. I can only tell you that we've built a strong execution engine and, we will focus on executing like we have done in the past 4 or 5 quarters. Nigel.
Mr. Guha, hi, good morning. From the earnings call, one thing I was just reading through some of what you said, and one thing you said is that revenues in the third quarter were driven by ability to pursue and execute short-term projects and change requests. Now, that is great and showcases the ability, but at the margin, is that also something to be watched and maybe a little worrying?
Actually, quite the contrary, Prashant. So, Prashant, look, when we talked about doing change requests and doing short-term projects, it's really not time and material projects. It is our customers' confidence in us to kind of give us work on the domain side, on the project side, which we are executing. And short-term really doesn't mean 1 or 2 months. It could even mean a year. But we are winning more and more deals from that perspective. And that's margin accretive. It's not margin dilutive. So look, I'm feeling very confident about the fact that we've executed well. We will continue to execute. But to Nigel's earlier question, where will the margin be at? I can't comment, but it will be in a narrow band. That's all I can say at this stage.
And what should that band be?
So look, hard to say, but we are satisfied with the fact that we've already touched 16%, and hopefully we will be in this range, Nigel.
Okay. Your annualized revenue is running at $650 million. Can you tell us by when do you plan to hit that $1 billion target?
Again, Sonia, that's our dream, right? We want to get to $1 billion. But the macroeconomic situation has not improved. It is pretty much the same. Okay. So we'll have to see in terms of how we drive quarter-on-quarter execution. So we don't have a time frame in mind, but we want to grow above industry average, right? That's our goal. in the medium term and continue to invest in all of the stuff that I spoke about. And, hopefully we will get there sooner rather than later, Sonia.
So
But
when
the
you
macro
say-
environment has not changed. Just to sort of, again, it's all tied in. The billion-dollar question with Sonia asked and the margin and the fact that shorter contract and change requests, etc. I mean, the environment where you're working, that is not deteriorating. Or is that perhaps at the margin deteriorating?
No, so it's not deteriorating, but it's not improving either. And you can't really tell what's going to happen in the future. But again, Prashant, I strongly believe that if the team can continue to focus on execution in the quarter, and we've demonstrated that, then we can continue to grow ahead of the industry, and that's going to be our focus.
I just had one follow-up to that, earlier question on growth. The BFSI segment has been, after a couple of good quarters, it's slowed down quite a bit. Are you seeing further pressure over there? And what do you think the growth in BFSI particularly could look like?
So, Sonia, as you know, when you have a seasonally weak quarter with furloughs, etc., BFSI gets affected the most. And that's what's happened to us. I'm not so worried. I think the growth will be back. We've had about 3 or 4 quarters of constant growth in BFSI, and I think we'll be back in Q4.
Right. Mr. Goa, final question before we let you go. Then attrition has come down to the low teens. What's the outlook out there? Point number 1. Point number 2 is you're sitting on a fair bit of cash. What's the strategy out there? Are you looking at some inorganic growth? Will you return some money to shareholders? So give us your outlook both on attrition and utilization of cash.
Yeah. So on the attrition bit, again, Nigel, in line with the industry, I think we've done very well. I talked about in the last call, we've promoted people, we've given a wage hike, we are hiring a lot more people. And I think in general, there's a lot of confidence in the company. So I'm thinking that the attrition will be at the current levels, at least for the next quarter or so. And then once the market turns, we will see how it goes. And like you said, we are generating good cash every quarter. We want to obviously deploy cash better. And we will look at all opportunities. Right now, there are no opportunities on the table, but as and when opportunities come up, we are very keen to look at it.
All right, Mr. Goa, we'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot for joining in and speaking to us about your business and the way forward. That is Birlasoft. But let's just look at the market.